On the night of our wedding, my husband rode out to war with the crown prince. I waited for him, for 7 long, silent, lonely years. When the army finally returned, I stood at the gates of the general's manor, my heart racing, my smile trembling with relief. And then I saw it. A woman, walking behind him, carrying a 4-year-old boy who looked unmistakably like him. My smile froze. My world cracked. Chapter 1. I stood at the entrance of the general's manor, fingers curled tightly in my sleeves. Before I could even greet him, the sight in front of me crushed the breath from my chest. Harrison Huo, my childhood sweetheart, the man I had loved all my life, was still in his armor, snow-dusted and heroic. He stepped toward me as if to embrace me. I stepped back. My gaze went to the woman, then to the child, her little boy whose eyebrows were a mirror of his father's. My voice was quiet, trembling but sharp as a blade. "Are you not going to explain?" "Yara?" Before he could finish, the woman suddenly knelt with a loud thud, pushing the boy down beside her. "Madam, it was all my fault. Please don't blame the general." The boy glared up at me like I was the villain of his story. I let out a breathless laugh, not from amusement, but from heartbreak so deep it burned. "So this is the one lifetime, one couple you promised me?" For 7 years, I had guarded an empty room, waiting for the man who swore he would come home to me. And while I waited, he had bedded another woman in the military camp, and fathered a child old enough to speak. Harrison finally spoke, voice low and trembling. "Elena Shen was someone I rescued on the battlefield. She had nowhere to go, and that day I'd had too much to drink. I thought she was you. It only happened once. I never expected she'd become pregnant with Julian. Julian is my son. I can't abandon him. He's still so young. He needs his birth mother." He dared to look at me. "Yara, if it makes you upset, I can send them to another residence." "Send them away?" As if distance could erase betrayal. Before I could speak, Madame Huo, the matriarch who had disliked me since childhood, stormed out. "The eldest grandson of the Huo family will not live in some side residence," she declared coldly. I bowed. "Mother." She ignored me completely, holding Elena's hand with sudden affection. "You've given our family an heir. From now on, focus on raising the child. You'll want for nothing." Of course, a gentle, obedient woman who had birthed a son, everything she wished I had been. That night, Harrison apologized endlessly, held me, coaxed me, begged me, and for his sake, foolishly, I decided to try. But just as we were about to consummate our reunion, Elena's maid burst in crying. "The young master is burning with fever. He keeps calling for the general. Please, please come." Luna Jin snapped back coldly, but Harrison looked torn in half, and in the end, he chose them. Luna cried beside me, not because she'd been scolded, but because she believed I deserved better. I grew up with Harrison. He was the son of the general. I was the prime minister's daughter. We were promised to each other since childhood. Everyone envied us. The night before our wedding, he held me in my red bridal dress and whispered promises of forever. But forever had died somewhere on the battlefield. The next day, Elena brought Julian to pay respects. I refused to see them. They stood outside in the freezing wind for 2 hours anyway. When I finally came out, Elena's gaze held thinly veiled triumph. The boy's eyes carried hostility no 4-year-old should know. When they left, Julian's fever worsened again. Madame Huo barged in, accusing me of deliberately harming the child. I defended myself calmly, but she only grew more enraged. She raised her hand to slap me, and I caught her wrist midair. "Madam," I said quietly, "even my own mother has never raised a hand against me. What makes you think you can?" Her face drained of color. She had forgotten who I was. Prime Minister Zhang's daughter, the niece of Imperial Consort Xuan. If I cried to my aunt the way Elena cried to her, the entire Huo family would tremble. Elena tried to provoke me again, but Harrison suddenly walked in. He heard everything. Elena immediately threw herself at him, sobbing dramatically. "General, your wife tried to harm Julian. She even called him an idiot." I looked at Harrison, expression calm, frozen. He pushed Elena away. "What evidence do you have? Elena, stop making baseless accusations." But when he turned to me, he said softly, "Yara, Julian is only a child. Even if you don't like him, you shouldn't call him that." The final thread inside me snapped. "Harrison Huo," I said clearly, "I want a divorce." Harrison didn't return until the second half of the night. I turned my head away and pretended to sleep. He crawled into bed quietly and wrapped his arms around me from behind. We were so close physically, yet I felt farther from him than ever before. The man I had pined for over 7 years had finally returned, but the love I once felt so deeply had begun to fade. I couldn't love him with my whole heart anymore. Sometimes even seeing him smile made my chest tighten, because I would immediately think of Elena and her son. He seemed to sense the change. These days he acted carefully around me. No matter how many excuses Elena had Tracy bring to call him away, he refused to leave my side again. See? Even without him going, Elena and Julian lived just fine. Every day when he returned from the palace, he brought me my favorite sweets. When I was bored, I would stroll the garden with Luna, enjoying snacks and flowers. It was peaceful. But some people simply refused to stay out of my sight. Elena came again with Julian. Luna and I were about to leave. Elena told Julian to greet me. He mumbled twice, refusing, nothing like the obedient child he pretended to be in front of Harrison and Madame Huo. I had no desire to acknowledge a child forced upon me. I turned to leave, but just as we passed each other, without me touching him at all, Julian suddenly fell into the pond. Elena and Tracy immediately accused me of pushing him, crying out that I had a vicious heart. I rolled my eyes. Watching the boy flail in the water, I thought Elena truly had a vicious mind, willing to use her own child to frame me. I even reminded her, if you don't save him soon, you won't have anyone left to play your little tragedy roles anymore. After a signal from Elena, a nearby guard rushed over, jumped in, and pulled Julian out. He had swallowed cold water and was coughing nonstop. They rushed him back to the doctor. It was the dead of winter. After falling into icy water, his illness would surely worsen again. The matter soon reached Madame Huo. Elena cried dramatically, so convincingly that if I weren't the one being framed, even I might have been fooled. "Madam," she sobbed, "if you dislike me, come at me. Julian is so young, he knows nothing. How could you be so cruel as to push him into the freezing pond? My poor child." Then she knelt and pleaded, "Madam, please let the general send us to a side residence. It may be less comfortable, but at least Julian won't be in danger there." Madame Huo slammed the table. "Yara-Jan, kneel." I didn't move. Calmly I said, "I didn't push him. He jumped himself." Elena quickly argued, "He's a child, not an idiot. How could he jump in himself? He can't even swim." I clapped slowly. "Well said. Maybe you did give birth to an idiot. Should I call some famous doctors to examine him? He's still young. Best not delay treating his condition." "You, how dare you curse my child? Yara-Jan, you've gone too far." Madame Huo stormed over and raised her hand to slap me, but I caught her wrist easily. "Madam, I call you mother. Did you really think that means you can do whatever you want to me?" I flung her arm aside. She staggered back several steps and nearly fell. I stepped closer to her. "Even my own mother has never raised a hand against me. What makes you think you have the right? And all for a bastard child. Don't forget, even though I married into the general's manor, I am still the prime minister's daughter. If my father learns how you've treated me here, do you think he will stay silent? Oh, and one more thing. You seem to have forgotten. The aunt who loves me most is the imperial consort Xuan. If I go to her and cry the way Elena does, do you think she will spare you or the entire Huo family?" Madame Huo froze. "Before, I respected you for Harrison's sake. I deferred to you. I let you have your way. But you have never treated me as one of your own. And now you stand with someone beneath you to insult and slander me. Since that's how it is, I see no reason to be polite anymore. Don't you agree? My family had always been my greatest backing." Madame Huo finally realized it. She no longer dared to strike me and could only stand there trembling with anger. Elena, however, still had enough cunning to keep attacking. "Yara-Jan, how dare you speak to the madam like this? She is the general's mother. No matter how strong your family is, you're only a married-off daughter. They won't go to war with the entire general's manor for your sake." "Enough." Harrison pushed the door open. I didn't know how long he had been standing outside or how much he had heard. It no longer mattered. Elena immediately acted like she saw her savior. She threw herself into his arms, crying as if her heart were breaking. "General, thank goodness you're back. You must stand up for Julian. Madam can't tolerate him," and tried to push him into the pond. She even said he's an idiot. I looked at Harrison coldly. He pushed Elena away. What nonsense. If you say Yara pushed Julian, do you have any proof? Tracy and the guard both saw it. Tracy nodded quickly. I saw it with my own eyes. Madam pushed the young master. Of course the guard would lie. Elena had already bought him. Luna stepped forward at the perfect moment. I can testify for my lady. She was far from you all. She couldn't have pushed him. She didn't even touch him. Stop making baseless accusations. Harrison turned back to Elena. Then tell me, why would Yara do such a thing? Because Julian refused to call her madam. I was speechless. Who wants your idiot son to call me anything? General, look, she called him an idiot again. Elena cried pitifully. Harrison took my hand. Yara, Julian is just a child. Even if you don't like him, you shouldn't speak that way. With a mother like Elena, even a normal child would be taught into becoming a fool. I pulled my hand back and said clearly, Harrison, whoa, I want a divorce. A flash of triumph passed through Elena's eyes. Harrison, however, grabbed me tightly. No, Yara, don't. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. From now on, do whatever you want. Say whatever you want. Just don't leave me. Elena looked utterly shocked. General? Harrison looked at me. Yara, I will find out the truth about what happened today and clear your name. I met his gaze. The old affection in my eyes was gone. That stopped mattering a long time ago. Harrison, I don't want to say this a second time. You know very well. Once I make up my mind, no one can stop me. By now, Elena Shen and Julian Hua were a thorn in my heart. They stood between me and him. There was no going back for us. Before this, I had just been running from the truth. I told myself that as long as I didn't see them, they didn't exist. But now I knew. Running away was the most useless thing of all. Even if they couldn't truly hurt me, they still jumped out from time to time to disgust me. I was honestly afraid that one day I'd pick up a sword and end them both. To stain my hands with blood over such insects was not worth it. I wrote the divorce letter. Harrison refused to sign. If you don't sign this, I told him, I'll write a repudiation letter myself. For a woman to cast off her husband, there had been very few such cases in all of history. If I publicly repudiated Harrison, the general's manor would become a laughingstock. People would say he doted on a concubine and cast aside his wife until his wife left in fury. He still refused. He promised me again and again that he would never let Elena and her son appear before me again. In the end, it took Madame Huo threatening to kill herself to force him. Only then did he sign the divorce papers with tears in his eyes. I returned to the Prime Minister's residence. For half a month, Harrison kept watch outside our gates. No matter how my father or the guards tried to chase him away, he would not take a single step back. Several times the emperor summoned him to the palace. Each time he came out, he rushed back to stand outside my home. I heard Elena had brought her sickly son to cry at the gate a few times. My father thought they were bad luck and had the guards carry them back and throw them at the gate of the general's manor. During these days, besides Harrison, the most frequent visitor was Crown Prince Zhen. He came under the pretense of discussing state affairs with my father, but after half a cup of tea, he would slip off to my courtyard. The three of us had played together as children. Now everything had changed. Do you really mean to cut Harrison off completely? He asked. He still seems to care about you. Cheap, I said. What? Before, his love was a treasure to me. I wanted to respond to protect it. Now, his love is like those shoddy hairpins sold everywhere outside. Cheap. I, Yara Jiang, have never cared for cheap trinkets. Prince Zhen laughed. Since you've divorced him, why not marry me instead? I can't promise you a lifetime of one man and one woman, but if I become emperor one day, the empress's seat will be yours. Your Highness, please don't make such jokes again. Why don't you believe I'm serious? I raised a brow at him. It's not that I don't believe you. But must I spell it out for you, Your Highness? Have you forgotten what you've done? Prince Zhen burst out laughing, understanding at once. So you're still the little one I know. Nothing can get past you. My aunt, Imperial Consort Xuan, summoned me to the palace for a talk. Prince Zhen happened to be returning, so he offered to escort me. We had barely stepped out when Harrison came toward us. Half a month apart, he looked much thinner. He seemed hollowed out, like a soul had left his body. He bowed to the crown prince, then tried to approach me. Prince Jen simply slipped an arm around my shoulders and, as we passed Harrison, said coolly, "You didn't know how to cherish her before. Don't cling to her now." I calmly stepped out from under his arm. "Your Highness, please mind your manners." Prince Jen shrugged with a smile. "I helped you just now, and you turn your back on me already?" "I don't recall asking for your help." Yes, I was the one who insisted on helping you, is that it?" Once we entered the palace, we parted ways. Luna leaned close and whispered in my ear, "Miss, I think the Crown Prince is fond of you. If you became his princess, it would be quite the revenge on that heartless man." I shook my head, smiling. "You don't understand. Prince Jen had grown up deep inside the palace. He was the Crown Prince. His thoughts were not something one could read easily. If they were, he wouldn't have survived this long." I had only just stepped into my aunt's palace when she grabbed my hand and pulled me to sit down, not even giving me time to salute. "I've been unwell these past days," she said, "so I didn't call you in to ask properly. You and Harrison divorced? Did he wrong you in any way?" "Don't worry, Aunt. Does it look like I'm someone who's easily bullied?" She kept pressing, asking again and again, until she was sure I wasn't lying. Only then did she let it go. We chatted casually. She clearly had something else on her mind, but each time she seemed about to say it, she swallowed it back. Until a servant came to report that the 13th prince had arrived. Chapter 2. A flicker of unease crossed my aunt's face. "Yara, I forgot to tell you. Lucian is back. He left Jinzhou a few days ago and arrived yesterday." I smiled and said nothing. Prince Lucian Li entered, greeted us, and then simply stared at me. No matter how many times my aunt coughed to remind him, he acted as if he hadn't heard. I sighed inwardly, excused myself, and took my leave. As soon as I stepped out, Lucian followed. He trailed behind me, neither too close nor too far, without saying a word. Even when we reached the palace gate and I was about to board my carriage, he still didn't speak. As the carriage rolled away, I lifted the curtain and looked back. He was still standing at the gate, watching from afar. Just like 7 years ago when I left to be married. Back then, he had stood at the gate of the Prime Minister's residence, eyes red, watching as I got into my bridal sedan and left him behind. His gaze was full of a love I could never repay. After that, he came to the General's Manor to see me a few times, but I always found excuses not to meet him. In the end, he left the capital in disappointment and wandered the land. I thought that with time, he would let go. That one day he'd forget me and find someone truly meant for him. But I hadn't expected that after so many years, his feelings for me would still be the same. The next morning, an imperial edict arrived from the palace. The emperor decreed that I was to be betrothed to the crown prince. The wedding would be in 3 months. I asked my father and my aunt to persuade the emperor to take back his decree. I heard Harrison also went to plead, but 10 days passed with no result. One afternoon, I sat on the swing in the yard, lost in thought. Luna rushed in. "Miss, His Highness the Crown Prince is here." Ever since the Emperor betrothed me to him, Prince Jen had stopped coming to the Prime Minister's residence. His sudden visit surprised me, but it was just as well. There were things I wanted to say. "My future Crown Princess doesn't seem very happy to see me," he said. I bowed. "I wouldn't dare, Your Highness. I only hope you can ask His Majesty to rescind his decree." "Do you truly hate the idea of marrying me that much?" Since things had come to this, I saw no need to mince words. "Your Highness knows I could never accept Harrison, having a woman and child outside. You should also know, the moment you dragged me into your plan, you and I became impossible in this life." I had sent people to investigate that night in the army camp between Harrison and Elena. Although Harrison had rescued Elena on the battlefield, he had placed her in a nearby village. She had no way of getting near his tent, unless someone helped her. And the one who stood to gain the most from all this was the Crown Prince. His goal was the throne. His greatest rival was the Emperor's most beloved 13th prince, Lucian. Behind Lucian stood my aunt's powerful clan from Xuanlin. He also had the Prime Minister's residence and the General's Manor. If he wished to challenge the Crown Prince, it would be all too easy. So Prince Jen's first step was to sever the alliance between the Prime Minister's residence and the General's Manor. If I then married him, it would cut off Lucian's last path of support. Aren't you afraid I'll tell Harrison everything? I asked. That in the end, you'll be left with nothing? Prince Jen laughed confidently. You said it yourself. You know I understand you. You won't. You should be thanking me. I helped you see that he doesn't love you as much as you thought. As for Elena, she really does like Harrison. I only gave her a little push. Her body did the rest. She got pregnant in one try. Ha! The Prince Jen before me felt like a stranger. I remembered the first time we met in the palace as children. I had gotten separated from the palace maids and lost my way in the imperial garden. He had come over and said, "Little one, come with me. I'll take you out." Back then, he had been kind and gentle. Now he looked more like a demon whose depths I could no longer see. Lucian has never wanted to fight you for the throne, I said quietly. Why must you go this far? My words touched a nerve. Prince Jen's expression darkened. Maybe he doesn't fight, he said. But father loves him. He has a favored concubine for a mother. If father insists on giving him the throne one day, do you think he'll refuse? But he really does care about you. The moment he heard I asked father to decree your marriage to me, he started going to father every day, begging him to take it back. An imperial decree isn't something you can just take back. He's still a child at heart. Oh, he seems to have changed his strategy these last 2 days. He should still be kneeling outside the Hall of Heavenly Purity right now. I froze. Lucian had been kneeling outside the Hall of Heavenly Purity for 2 days, and no one had told me? Prince Jen smiled smugly. Between the throne and you, he'll choose you, of course. What a waste. If it were me, I'd choose both. Prince Jen, you're despicable. I raised my hand to slap him, but he caught my wrist and leaned in. Little one, are you angry? He teased. I decided I might as well go all the way. I slammed my forehead into his. He hissed in pain. My own head throbbed, but I refused to show it. Instead of getting angry, he laughed. One day, I'll make you willingly submit to me. In your dreams, I will never marry you. He squeezed my wrist hard, as if he might crush it. That's not up to you. Then he let go, turned, and walked away. With his back to me, he waved casually. I'll visit again another day. For now, I should go check on my poor, exhausted little brother. After he left, I squatted on the ground for a long time before I could catch my breath. One thought took over my mind. I could not let him succeed. He was no longer the boy he used to be. Now there was nothing he wouldn't do. If he became emperor, Lucian would never live. I ran straight to my father's study. Father, how is the 13th prince? My father's brows were knotted. The crown prince told you? To make his majesty change his mind, the 13th prince has been kneeling outside the Hall of Heavenly Purity for 2 days and nights without food or water. If this keeps up, I fear he can't last much longer. My heart clenched painfully. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He sighed. His Highness forbade us to tell you. He didn't want you to worry. I requested an audience with the Emperor. Sure enough, outside the Hall of Heavenly Purity, I saw Lucian still kneeling, unable to rise. My aunt stood to one side, wiping tears from her eyes. I took a bowl of water from the old eunuch and knelt down before Lucian. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. He did not take the bowl. He looked even thinner than a few days ago. His lips were cracked. He had none of his usual vitality. Your Highness? I said softly, the Crown Prince is doing this to make father grow tired of you. Can't you see that? By kneeling here, you're giving him exactly what he wants. I only know one thing, he rasped. You don't want to marry him, so I will help you. I pressed the bowl to his lips and forced some water into his mouth. Drink this and stand up. My affairs, I will handle myself. This does nothing to help. He still didn't move. I sighed and exchanged a glance with my aunt, then followed the eunuch into the hall. I knelt, lowered my head to the floor, and spoke respectfully. Your Majesty, this humble daughter begs permission to become a nun and spend the rest of my life with incense and Buddha. Are all of you determined to anger me to death? The Emperor snapped. I did not raise my head. I would never dare. His anger slowly cooled. I think you dare quite a lot. Get up first. Yes, Your Majesty. Explain this to me. Why would you rather shave your head and enter a temple than marry the Crown Prince? I have just divorced General Huo, I said. If I marry the Crown Prince right away, the world will gossip. That is the first reason. The second is that I have no romantic feelings for the Crown Prince. Ridiculous. My decree? Who dares gossip about it? If you don't like the crown prince, does that mean you've fallen for the 13th prince instead? No, your majesty. He nodded, satisfied. You're a smart girl. You should know you and 13 are impossible. I understand. I'll give you two choices, he said. The corners of my lips lifted. Any choice was better than a dead end. The neighboring kingdom wishes to form a marriage alliance. Their Princess Moya has set her heart on 13. Your first choice is to persuade him to marry her. Your second choice is to go home and wait for your wedding. In 3 months, you will marry the crown prince. Should I really secure my own happiness by pushing Lucian to marry someone he doesn't love? I couldn't. He was doing it on purpose. I was about to speak again when the eunuch outside suddenly shouted, "Your Majesty, the 13th prince has fainted." I followed the emperor to Lucian's quarters. The imperial physician had just finished taking his pulse and was preparing to leave. He said Lucian had simply collapsed from exhaustion and not eating for 2 days. With some medicine and rest, he would recover. We all let out a long breath. In that moment, the emperor no longer looked like a ruler. He looked like a worried father, gazing at his unconscious son with soft eyes. Suddenly, my aunt dropped to her knees. "Your Majesty," she said, "in all my life I have never asked you for anything. But now, regarding Yara and the crown prince's marriage, I beg you to take back your decree. They are not in love. Why force them?" The emperor flicked his sleeve. "What are you doing now?" But he couldn't bear to leave her kneeling. He went over, helped her up, and had her sit by his side. He held her hand and sighed. "I've already told you," he said. "I have my reasons." "Is your Majesty afraid Lucian will threaten the crown prince's position?" she asked. Normally, she was gentle and never spoke of court matters. She must have been truly desperate to speak so directly now. "Do you really not understand my intentions?" he asked. By then, I understood. The emperor had decided firmly to marry me to the crown prince. He could not let this matter deepen the rift between his 2 sons any further. So I spoke up to smooth things over. "Aunt," I said, "I've thought it through. I am willing to marry the crown prince." She stared at me, confused. The emperor, however, gave me an approving look. After he left, I spoke honestly with my aunt. His Majesty is doing this to protect the 13th prince. Until recently, I had thought the same as the crown prince, that the emperor favored Lucian and might one day give him the throne. Now I saw the truth. The emperor had not forgotten that he was emperor first and father second. The crown prince was the empress's adopted son. The empress herself had little real power behind her. Her family was weak. In contrast, Lucian's background was too strong. He had my aunt's powerful clan in Schwanlin, the prime minister's residence, and the general's manor behind him. If he chose to rebel, the crown prince would stand no chance. Between the crown prince and Lucian, the crown prince was the better choice for the throne. He had earned military merit and popular support. He was brave and decisive. Lucian was too kind. A soft heart could not bear such a burden. "The crown prince is destined to sit on the throne," I said. "That is precisely why His Majesty wants me to marry him. He knows the crown prince's temperament. He fears that once His Highness ascends, he will see Lucian as a threat and eliminate him. But if I'm there, it's different. First, I'm also of the Schwanlin clan and the prime minister's daughter. Second, the crown prince cares about me. He won't risk rebellion or bloodshed for my sake. Only when his fears are completely gone will he let Lucian live." My aunt was speechless for a long time. At last, she whispered, "Yara, it's hard on you." I shook my head with a small smile. In the face of the country, what is love worth? When I divorced Harrison, I truly wanted to live, however I pleased for the rest of my life. But I had forgotten something. My family was my armor, and my soft spot. I could never truly ignore everything and walk away. I stayed by Lucian's bedside all afternoon. It was almost dark when he finally woke. Seeing me there, he brightened. "Do you feel any discomfort?" I asked. He shook his head. "Have you been here the whole time?" "Yes. Now that you're awake, I should return to the residence." I had just stood up when he grabbed my hand in panic. "Yara, don't go." I pulled my hand out of his grasp and stepped back, putting distance between us. "I chose to marry the crown prince," I said. "Even if you beg His Majesty, it won't change anything." "You don't love my brother," he said. "Why do this?" Whether I love him or not doesn't matter. What I want is the Empress's seat. And besides, I don't love you either. Even without the crown prince, we would never be. He stared at me stunned. You're not that kind of person. I didn't want to say any more. I only hoped that my harsh words would help him finally let go. On the way back, my head throbbed. I leaned against Luna's shoulder and closed my eyes. Not long after we left the palace, the carriage jolted to a stop. The coachman called out, "Miss, a woman is blocking the road. She says she wants to see you." Luna lifted the curtain and peeked out. "It's Elena. Miss, you rest. I'll go drive her away." I stopped her. "Don't. Let the guards handle it." The guards picked Elena up and tossed her to the roadside. Even then, she refused to give up. She shouted at the top of her lungs, "Yara Jian, don't you want to know who sent me close to the general? Could it be not the crown prince?" I told the coachman to stop and got out of the carriage. I stood over Elena, looking down at her. "Say what you want to say," I told her. "Now is your chance." "Yara Jian, you must be pleased with yourself," she spat. "My Julian is dead. He's dead, because of you." Her sudden madness caught everyone off guard. Before anyone could react, she pulled a dagger from her sleeve and lunged at me. A dark figure rushed out from the side, pulling me into an embrace and taking the blade in his back. My hand came away sticky with Prince Lucian's blood. My legs nearly gave out, but I forced myself to hold him tight and shouted to Luna and the guards, "Go call the imperial physician. Hurry." Then I looked at the now half-crazed Elena. "Take her back to the Prime Minister's residence and lock her up," I ordered. "No one releases her without my permission." Lucian slid down from my arms to sit on the ground. I cradled him, tears streaming down my face. "Your Highness, don't fall asleep. You have to stay awake. You can't die, do you hear me?" Lucian smiled weakly and lifted a trembling hand to my cheek. "If not for you," he whispered, "death would almost be a relief for me. So, Yara, if I really die, don't be sad, all right?" I don't remember how I got home in the end. My mother, Lady Jiang, held me, her eyes red with tears. "It's all right," she said. "The imperial physician said the wound isn't fatal. Lucian will be fine." "Yes, he'll be fine." I said it for her, and for myself. I forced myself to pull it together and went to the woodshed where Elena was locked up. Before the Emperor sent people to take her away, I had to get the answers I wanted. Elena sat on the floor, arms wrapped tightly around herself, weary and shrunken. Her eyes had lost their sharpness. All that was left was a dull gray. Luna had gone to ask around. She came back and reported that Julian had finally died after repeated fevers. The moment he drew his last breath, Harrison had thrown Elena out of the general's manor without mercy. That was what pushed her over the edge. "She deserves it," Luna said angrily. "It's all retribution. She brought this on herself, got her own child killed, and now she still dares blame you. Shameless." I stepped closer to Elena. "What did you mean earlier?" I asked coldly. "The person behind you, was it the crown prince?" She laughed in a broken way. "Yes, and no." She was being deliberately vague, refusing to speak clearly. My eyes burned with anger. I knelt and gripped her throat hard. "If you talk now, I can let you die with a whole body," I hissed. "If you don't, believe me, I'll dig up your son and have you both torn apart by 5 horses." Even she was frightened by how I looked. She clawed my hand away and coughed violently before whispering, "It was the man who took that knife for you. I don't know who he is. He gave me a large sum of silver and told me to pretend to be a helpless orphan so I could get close to the general, win his pity, and then win his heart. He said that if I successfully got pregnant with the general's child and entered the general's manor, I would get the wealth I wanted, and he'd give me another payment. But after the general saved me, he put me in a nearby village. I couldn't get near him at all. Then the crown prince appeared. Lucian, so it had all begun with him. I suddenly realized perhaps none of us had ever truly known him. I should have known. He was never some harmless, kind little rabbit. The Emperor soon sent men to take Elena away. She would not live to see another sunrise. The next morning, news came from the palace. Prince Lucian Li was no longer in danger. He had woken and kept asking to see me. I used the excuse of poor health and asked the eunuch to tell him to rest. I would visit another day. Half a month passed. I did not step outside the Prime Minister's residence. Anyone who wanted to see me, my father turned away. saying I wanted to quietly prepare for my wedding. One late night, I couldn't sleep. I got up, put on a cloak, and went into the courtyard to look at the moon. Suddenly, a shadow flashed across the top of the wall. My heart jumped. I opened my mouth to call the guards. A familiar flute melody stopped the words in my throat. Yara. A boy's voice echoed in my memory. What tune is that? It's so pretty. Better than the palace musicians. It's just something I made up, I had told him. You want to learn it? I can teach you. Young Lucian's eyes had lit up. He nodded vigorously. When I learn it, I'll play it for you. He didn't just learn it. He played it better than I did. Luna once overheard him practicing. She told me that even though she couldn't understand the tune, she felt that whoever was playing had poured his feelings into the flute. It made her want to cry for no reason. I didn't look up at the wall. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and went back inside. From then on, every night, Lucian came to the wall outside my courtyard and played a song. Then he left without a sound. I only listened from behind my closed window. I never went out to see him. When the wedding day with the crown prince drew near, the flute music stopped. I thought, he must have come to his senses. He's finally ready to let go. Ending it here was probably the best ending for us. Miss, this wedding robe is beautiful. The palace embroiderers really are better than anyone outside, Luna said, pulling me from my thoughts. I glanced down at the luxurious red robe I was trying on, feeling almost nothing. My mother smoothed a wrinkle at the hem and sighed. Your father and I always hoped you would marry into an ordinary family, she said. That you could live a calm, peaceful life. But back then, you liked Harrison so much. You poured your whole heart into him. You loved each other, so we agreed. We never imagined it would end like this. And now you're trapped by the palace again. The palace is far more complicated and dangerous than the general's manor. Every step you take from now on must be even more careful. I forced a smile to comfort her. Mother, don't worry. I can protect myself. And besides, I still have Aunt in the palace. With her there, who would dare bully me? On the surface, yes, my mother said. But what about the shadows? The ones who scheme behind your back? She grew distant, lost in old memories. Before Lucian, your aunt had another child, she said quietly. But that baby didn't live 3 months. Someone bribed the maid at her side and smothered the child to death. If she hadn't had Lucian later, I don't think your aunt would ever have climbed out of that grief. I remembered when I was younger. My older brother couldn't refuse me, and once secretly took Lucian and me out to the market. There were too many people. We got separated from my brother. I grabbed Lucian's hand and ran, only to be chased into a dead-end alley by a group of men in black. Their target was Lucian. They wanted him dead. That was when I understood. Some people are born as thorns in others' eyes, no matter what they themselves have done or not done. Luckily, I had learned some martial arts from Harrison. I did everything I could to shield Lucian behind me. I was stabbed several times. I barely held on until my brother arrived with reinforcements. They say all the imperial physicians were called. In the end, they could only shake their heads and tell our household to prepare for my funeral. But Lucian didn't give up on me. He somehow found a legendary healer. And I lived. When I woke, Lucian held me and cried for 2 full hours. He said that if I died, he wouldn't live either. I had thought it was just childish nonsense and never took it seriously. Is the waist a little loose? My mother asked, touching the fabric. Should we send it back to the palace to be taken in? I shook my head. It's fine like this. It was a political marriage from the start. There was no need to insist on perfection. Seeing my lack of enthusiasm, my mother changed the subject. Lucien has gone back to Xuanlin, she said. Back to Xuanlin? He said he hasn't been back in a long time. He wanted to clear his head. Everyone knew how he felt about me. My mother was testing me, trying to see what I thought. That's good, I said. By the time he comes back, I'll already be his sister-in-law. Everything would be set in stone. Seeing no change in my expression, my mother sighed softly to herself. Chapter 3. For some reason, without Lucian's flute these last few days, my heart hadn't been at ease. I kept feeling that something big was about to happen. On the day I was to marry the crown prince, Luna and the others dragged me out of bed at dawn to wash, dress, and put on makeup. I was like a puppet on strings, letting them move me however they wished. I thought of my first wedding. Back then, I'd been both excited and nervous. This time, my heart was calm as still water. It felt more like a formality. Maybe the rest of my life would be like this. I didn't know why, but my mind was full of Lucian's face. What was he doing right now? A sudden thought flashed through my mind and frightened me. I shook my head hard, refusing to let myself think nonsense. My older brother suddenly burst through the door, his expression grim. "The Imperial City is in chaos," he said. "Lucian has led troops in rebellion." He told me to stay quietly in my room and not go anywhere. My head exploded, buzzing so loudly I couldn't think. I fell to the floor. I didn't know whether I should worry about the Emperor or about Lucian. Whether he succeeded or failed, neither was an outcome I wanted to see. But in my heart, I was already leaning to one side. I wanted Lucian to win. At least that way he could keep his life. But if he failed, he and the entire Schwanlin clan would be wiped out. I stayed in my room all day, not knowing what was happening outside or how far things had gone. By nightfall, my father and brother finally came back with news. "The 13th prince forced his majesty to abdicate," my brother said. "The crown prince, all the other princes and princesses, and the imperial consorts have been confined to their own palaces. The world has completely changed. He hadn't killed them. That alone was a mercy." My nerves, strung tight all day, suddenly relaxed. Sleep rolled over me like a wave. Half dreaming, half awake, I felt something brush across my face. It tickled. I reached out to grab it and before I knew it, closed my hand around someone's fingers. I jerked my eyes open and by the light of the moon, saw his face. His palm was rough with calluses. Until that moment, I hadn't known he practiced martial arts. I'd always thought of him as a frail, bookish prince. "When did you learn to fight?" I asked. "After you were badly hurt protecting me as a child," he said. "I worked hard at it. From then on, I wanted to be the one protecting you." "Why did you revolt?" My voice was low. "Do you know you'll bear a lifetime of infamy for this?" "I don't care," he said. "I only want you. Anyone who gets in the way, I'll remove. Besides, history is written by the victor. From now on, he would be the highest power in the land. Who would dare curse him? How did you become like this?" I whispered. He pulled me up from the bed and into his arms. His voice shook with intensity. "What's wrong with how I am now? Didn't you want the Empress's seat? I can give it to you too. I just want to be with you forever. How is that wrong?" I tried to push him away, but the strength between us was too different. In the end, I gave up. "I don't have romantic feelings for you," I said. "Why cling to someone who doesn't love you? Wouldn't it be better to find someone who does and spend your life with her instead?" "No." His answer was firm. "I told you, I only want you. It doesn't matter if you don't love me, as long as you stay by my side and let me love you and protect you, that's enough." I thought Lucian had gone mad. When I went to see Prince Zhen, he said almost the same thing. Though he was a prisoner now, he didn't look defeated at all. He was even painting at his ease. Mountains, rivers, his ink washes were vivid and alive. I'd never known he had this talent. "This isn't so bad," he said, smiling thinly. "Now father has seen his precious jewel's true nature. He always said I was the one with schemes and ambition, and Lucian was pure and kind and dear to his heart. I wonder if he can still say that now, locked up by that same pure sun. Now you know who the real madman is." When I was little, every time I memorized a new poem, I'd go to recite it to father. He continued. But his eyes were always on Lucian. He'd hold him and coax him, laugh as he handed him sweets. He was never that gentle with any of the rest of us. Sometimes I felt like he was only Lucian's father, not ours. I went to see the old emperor too. He had made himself ill with rage. He lay in bed, and my aunt stayed by his side, caring for him day and night. I asked her quietly, "Did you know about this beforehand?" Without her, Lucian could never have gotten Schwanlin's troops so easily. "I only have Lucian now," she said. "I just want him to have everything he wants. Yara, do you blame me?" I stayed silent. She clutched my hand, agitated. "Lucian truly loves you. For you, he would give up his life. If you marry him, he'll never let you suffer another slight." "But Aunt," I cut in softly, "have you thought of the people? If Lucian raised troops and rebelled for my sake, is he really fit for that throne? What will the people say of him and of me? Unfilial usurper, temptress who bewitched the ruler." No matter how great power is, it can never silence every tongue. You really don't believe in me? Lucian had come in at some point. His eyes were red as he looked at me. You don't believe I can do better than Prince Jen, he said quietly. You don't believe I can protect you. That's right, I said. I was terrified for him, but the words simply wouldn't come out any other way. After I stubbornly admitted I didn't trust him, he stopped coming to see me every time he had a spare moment. It was as if he were sulking, but on the day of his coronation, he still made me his empress. He even announced that from this day on, there would be no other women in the harem but me, shutting down all the officials who dreamed of sending their daughters into the palace. He sent Harrison to guard the border. The former crown prince and the other princes and princesses were each granted estates and sent away from the capital. He declared to the world that the old emperor had died of illness and dismissed the remaining concubines. In truth, my aunt left the palace with the emperor and took him to an estate outside the capital to recover in peace. She told me this had always been her wish, to live like an ordinary couple with him. Now, in a way, she had gotten what she wanted. The once bustling imperial palace became quiet as an empty city. I didn't know if Lucian wanted to prove to me he could be a good emperor. He worked through memorials late into the night, collapsing over his desk for a short sleep, then dragging himself back up for morning court. His chief eunuch, Andy, couldn't stand watching it anymore. He came to tell me, "Your Majesty should talk to His Majesty," he begged me. "If he keeps this up, his body will give out sooner or later." I told Luna to have the kitchen make fish soup. I carried it to him myself. I stopped the servants from announcing me. Bowl in hand, I had just reached the Hall of Heavenly Purity when I heard Ethan Chen's voice from inside. "Your Majesty, since you miss Her Majesty so much, why not just go apologize to her?" He said. "No matter what, that's better than staring at her portrait and drinking yourself sick. Before, you couldn't see her, so the portrait was all you had. But she's yours now. She's in the rear palace. You can see her any time you want. Why are you still walking on eggshells?" There was a long silence. Then I heard Lucian's tired voice. "She doesn't have to love me," he said softly. "I just don't want her to hate me." When my aunt left the palace, she had pulled me aside and talked to me for a long time. She said that from the moment Lucian could remember, he had liked me. The first time he saw me, he wouldn't stop making a fuss until someone brought me to the palace to play with him, or he would sneak out to find me himself. But most of the time, I was with Prince Jen and Harrison. We were the same age. We fit together better. Lucian could only stand in the distance and watch us. In my memories, there were only a few scattered moments that belonged to Lucian. But in his world, every corner was filled with me. I pushed open the doors. Both men turned in surprise. I set the soup on the table in front of him. "Drink it while it's hot." Ethan Chen quietly slipped out, closing the door behind him. Lucian stared at me without blinking, joy flickering in his eyes. "Yara," he said, "you're not mad at me anymore? Aren't you the one who's been mad at me?" I asked. He grabbed my hand and pulled me onto his lap, his smile suddenly pure and bright, like the boy he had once been. "How could I be?" he said. "I'll never be angry with you." I remembered the soup and urged him to drink. Instead, he held me tighter, burying his face in the hollow of my neck. Maybe it was the wine in his blood. It took me a while to realize what he was trying to do. His voice was hoarse when he murmured, "Yara, you were the one who tempted me first." My breath hitched, and I jumped out of his arms. He hung his head like a child who had done something wrong. "Yara, I'm sorry, I won't do that again." He thought I was angry. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around his head. "I'm not rejecting you," I said quietly. "I just can't do this here, do you understand?" He looked up again, unable to hide the smile tugging at his lips. "Can I drink the soup now?" he asked. He downed the bowl in one gulp, then stood, scooped me into his arms, and strode toward my palace. I wrapped my arms around his neck. "Andy says you haven't been resting properly for days," I said. "Are you trying to make me feel sorry for you on purpose?" "I'm not," he muttered. "I just want to be a good emperor. Then I can be a good husband for you too. I understand what you're worried about. I won't let the things you fear come to pass. So, do you feel sorry for me?" I turned my head away with a smile and refused to answer. Even in the middle of the night, he kept pestering me, still sprawled over me, demanding I respond. My eyelids were so heavy I could barely keep them open. To make him stop, I finally mumbled, I'll worry about you. Very, very much, so stop treating your body like it doesn't matter. After that, I fell asleep. When I woke the next morning and opened my eyes, a beautiful face was lying beside me, smiling. You didn't go to morning court? I blurted. That's it, I thought. Now I'd really be branded a fox spirit who bewitched the emperor. He pressed a light kiss to my forehead. I already did. Court ended a long time ago. The sun's almost at your backside, little lazy bones. I pinched his waist in protest. Is it my fault I'm tired? Huh? If he hadn't refused to let me go last night, I would have been up at dawn. He laughed. Yes, it's all my fault. Next time. He leaned to my ear and whispered, next time I'll try to restrain myself. I got out of bed, dressed, and washed, refusing to speak to him. Yara, I was wrong. When I didn't react, he went on in a soft voice. I really know I was wrong. I'll listen to you about everything from now on, all right? I still ignored him, sitting before the mirror to comb my hair. He took the comb from my hand and began to gently smooth my hair himself. There's a temple fair at Tianji Temple today, he said. Why don't we sneak out and play? I finally gave in a little. Can we? I'd been shut in the palace so long I had almost forgotten the noise and bustle of the outside world. Of course, he said. From now on, you can go wherever you want. I thought of something. What about today's memorials? I already finished them, he said. So we disguised ourselves as an ordinary couple and slipped out of the palace. Tianji Temple was one of the most famous and respected temples in the capital. Many nobles came here to burn incense and pray. On festival days, it was even more lively. Hand in hand, we walked through the crowd. Whenever we passed a Buddha, we bowed and prayed. He asked what I'd wished for. I wished for everyone to be safe and healthy, I said. What about you? He squeezed my hand. I wished that I could stay by your side for life after life, he said. I pretended to be annoyed. Hey, this lifetime is already long enough, and you're already thinking about the next one? He ignored my tone and went on. In the next life, I want to be born before you, he said. I want to find you first. That way, I'm the one who gets to show up first. The one who doesn't have to stand off to the side watching me fall in love with someone else. I had no idea what to say. I could only hug him to comfort him a little. As we were about to leave, we ran into an old monk. He kept looking in our direction. I thought he had something to say, so I tugged Lucian along and went over. Master, I asked, you've been watching us. Do you have something to tell us? The old monk bowed slightly. Amitabha, he said. Fate, deep or shallow, turns on a single thought. Cherish what you have. With that, he turned and walked away. I wanted to chase after him and ask what he meant. I took a few steps, but he had already disappeared. Why say something so strange all of a sudden? I muttered. How odd. I've seen that monk before, Lucian said. Oh, I used to come here often to pray, he said quietly. I prayed that you would look back at me. One time I met that master. I asked him if we could be together. He only said 3 words, never give up. I brought you here today to repay that vow. I hadn't known he had done so much behind my back. At first, I only felt deeply moved. Gradually, I sank into his love. I laced my fingers through his and raised our joined hands, giving them a little shake. From now on, I said, I won't let go of your hand either. Thank you. He frowned slightly. Thank me for what? Thank you for never once thinking of giving me up. When we got into the carriage, I felt a gaze on my back. I turned and, without warning, met a pair of familiar eyes in the crowd. By the time Lucian followed my line of sight, the man had already vanished into the sea of people. What are you looking at? He asked. I smiled at him. Nothing. I was just thinking, when we pass Gao's later, we should buy extra mung bean cakes to take back to the palace. Otherwise, I'll be craving them again for ages. You little glutton, he chuckled. If you want something, just tell me. I'll have someone buy it for you. That's not the same, I said. The ones you buy yourself always taste better. He tapped my nose affectionately. All right, we'll buy plenty later. As the carriage rolled away, I lifted the curtain one last time. He was still standing there, staring after the carriage with eyes full of pain. I let the curtain fall, and with it I let go completely of that beautiful, youthful love. Just as the old monk had said, whether fate is deep or shallow, it turns on a single thought. Every step, every choice, is one we make ourselves.